Hey, welcome back, Doug Pagitt Radio on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm in the middle of a little segment that I'm calling The 6 Facts of State Government Budgeting that drive me crazy. Because they're not facts. I don't believe they're facts. I think that they're statements that are commonly held that do not reflect reality. And some people use them intentionally to cause other people to draw conclusions that they wouldn't draw if they were given the other facts. Fact number 1. We should spend within our means like a household budget.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because complex state budgeting is really nothing more than a big household.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, when you need more money in your household, go get another job.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a lot of us do. A lot of us run 3, 4, 5 jobs because we know you don't simply say, hey, honey, sorry, there's no more money. Just cut the budget. No, you go get another job, for crying out loud. All right, fact number 2 that drives me crazy. We spend too much money. Our problem is we spend too much. This is a big argument. You hear it on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
See, because in the state of Minnesota, let's say, we're spending $34 billion per biennium on social services. $34 billion.
Wow.
That's enough. Well, on what planet do you decide that's a big number? That's enough. It's only enough if it actually pays for the things you want to have paid for.
Yeah.
You don't simply pick a number and say, well, that's a lot. Right? So this idea that we spend a lot, so a lot is enough. Our problem is that we don't spend enough money on the things that we need to spend money on. The problem is not that, there's enough spending going on. We just now need to start making some cuts because, at some point, enough is enough. Well, maybe, but let's just say, for example, if $34 billion in social services in the state of Minnesota per biennium is enough, why not 32? Or why not 38?
Yeah.
What's another $4 billion? That's a little 10% uptick. Yeah. How come 38 isn't enough? Or how come 32? Because you don't just arbitrarily pick numbers. You should decide how much you're going to spend based on outcomes, not based on how big the number is. Mm-hmm. It's one of these things that drives me crazy. Crack staff out there, you got that next clip? Here's my friend Gretchen Hoffman, state legislator, speaking on this topic. Now, she's going to go on a little thing about how she thinks that we shouldn't become so dependent upon the government.
Okay.
Because that's not what this country was founded on. All right, so anyway, I'll let her speak for herself, and then you'll hear her a little bit here about the $34 billion. Sounds like enough to me. All right, here we go.
Thanks. There's a couple of questions there that I want to answer, a couple of points I want to make. Number one, we're looking at who we become dependent on. Do we become dependent on ourselves and our families and our communities, or do we become dependent on government? So
Can you pause it right there? Okay, so I said in the first segment that I think there's 4 spheres to our civic life: your individual and family life, your businesses, your nonprofits, and your government. And they are concentric circles of their influence and who they have to be responsible for. And she says, well, the biggest one, that someone would be responsible for everyone, that one we shouldn't really have. We don't want to be dependent on each other and everyone. We want to be dependent upon our nonprofits and businesses and families, right? So now we're just having a philosophical difference about how we've organized the United States of America. Fair enough. So she thinks you don't want to be so dependent upon that one, and she's going to get into why, because that one costs a lot. So here we go.
And that's one of the things that concerns me greatly. That's not what the country was founded upon. The second thing I want to talk about is in Maryland in 2008, they proposed a millionaire tax, and it was only 6.25%. The proposal here in Minnesota was at 10.95%, I believe.
Yeah, I'm sorry to bore you with all the percentages.
And in 1 year, their tax returns from that category of taxpayers went down 30%. They had to repeal that law. Capital moves. The millionaires or anybody who feels they're being overtaxed, that moves. And if that capital moves out of the state of Minnesota, that means that the taxes will fall on lower and lower incomes.
All right, pause it right there. Here we go. That's fact number 3 that drives me crazy. If you tax rich people, they're going to leave. Mm-hmm. No, they're not. People decide where they're going to live for more reasons than, can I keep more of my money away from the government? People decide where they're going to live because of the quality of life. And you know where millionaires want to live? In a place where you have a top-notch quality of life. Yeah. But even if they do leave, let them go. This fact that, you know what, poor people have to suffer because the rich might leave us. And then if they leave us, We're all going to have to pay it. Has this dependence, you can hear it in her statement, this then dependence upon rich people. So she's saying we shouldn't be dependent upon the government, but what is she suggesting? We should be dependent upon rich people.
Yeah.
This is troubling. This becomes a moral issue. This becomes a religious issue, not just a fiscal issue, in my view. Someone is suggesting that we should change our governmental policies so that we will become dependent upon rich people because they might leave us and forsake us. So don't make them mad. Do whatever you have to do to not make the millionaires mad. Are you kidding me? All right, go back. Let's roll it again. She's going to say this thing about how much is enough.
Income.
But what about the fundamental issue about spending? That you have this increasing need of folks who really need help. Doesn't the state have some responsibility to provide that help?
And I would go back to $34 billion is a lot of money to provide those services, and we're not even taking into account the federal match dollars. So you can almost double that biennial budget on the federal.
$34 billion is a lot of money. I mean, that's just enough.
Seems like enough to me.
I don't know how big the need is, but $34 billion should be enough to pay for it because it's just enough. That whole notion, like we just spend enough. Let's just figure out how to make it work. Let's say you were doing that in your household budget. Okay, let's say for a minute that you buy the household budget idea. Who in their household budget says, honey, we make $22,000 a year. That's just enough. I mean, that's a lot. Mm-hmm. When I was 12, $22,000 seemed like, an insurmountable amount to ever have to earn. No, you do. It just makes me crazy. But these are statements that people make all of the time. Build like a household budget. We already spend too much, and don't do bad things to the rich people or they're going to leave us. Fact number 4 that drives me crazy, tax is a punishment.
Yeah.
Tax is a punishment.
You hear that a lot.
Okay. You know what taxes pay for? They pay for the things that we have said the largest sphere of our civic life are responsible for. That's what they pay for. They're not punishing anyone. No one keeps the money. Here's what I just don't get about this. Governments don't get bank accounts.
Yeah.
They don't keep it. The federal government, the state government doesn't take your money and then keep it. They take it and spend it. All the time. They're always spending it. And who do they spend it on? Salaries and products. So tax money becomes a part of the system. It's not a punishment. It is a way that you pay for things in our society that the largest sphere of interest has to think about. Now, I know this isn't, Schoolhouse Rock Constitution edition, right? But it drives me crazy. And hearing it all week over and over on all sides of the political spectrum, I've heard people say these things. We need to build this like it's a household budget, and we just spend too much money, and we don't want to punish people with our taxes. And they're going to leave the state if we're not careful. And then number 5, raising taxes stops jobs. Okay, let me tell you something. As a small business owner, that's not true. Look, no business owner believes that it's their role to create more jobs. This whole small business owners make more jobs. Small businesses, of which I own, only hire people when it is to the advantage of my company. Mm-hmm. I don't sit around and think, you know what I would love to do today? I would love to hire someone.
I'd really like to help the government out by...
I just want to hire people. Mm-hmm. Look, my goal as a small business owner is to try to keep my expenses as low as possible.
Yeah.
So what do businesses want to do? Hire as few people as possible, because staff is almost in every business your highest budget amount. Mm-hmm. Your highest cost is are your employees. So what does any business owner want to do? They want to keep their staff as small as you can.
Yeah.
So when we hear from our political leaders that small businesses just get out of their way and they're going to make more jobs because they just can't wait to make jobs, it's just not true, right? So I'm in my car and I'm listening to this stuff, and my son was there. He's like, well, just call in and tell them then on the radio thing you're listening to. I'm like, oh, it's already, these people don't listen. And, it's like my own show for this. It makes me crazy, though, because you hear it all the time, right? Now, yes, You start businesses, more people get jobs. But it's not like small business owners are sitting around waiting to hire people. Mm-hmm. Small business owners are sitting around waiting to figure out how their business can be successful. And if my business could be successful with 2 employees or with 4 employees, I'm going to do it with 2 employees. Mm-hmm. That's the problem with capitalism. And then finally, the big one of them all. The big daddy, number 6 fact that drives me crazy when you're talking about state politics and the budget. We as individuals can spend our money better than the government. Oh, really? Let's say that of the 4 spheres, individuals, businesses, nonprofits, and government, you, individual, you can spend money better than the federal government, better than the state government. Really? Can you do that? Do you think you in your household could figure out how to pay for, say, child protection services? You really think you could hire that out better? Do you think you really could figure out where to buy the paint that goes on the lines down the middle of the road to go inside the sprayer? You really think you could get a better deal? Like if you were out there and you said, I'm going to go find the paint, or I'm going to go find an employee who's going to have the skill set to make sure that we're protecting young children in this state, you really think that I could do that better? I mean, it is just the kind of statement that you hear over and over. Really, I'm going to put together some sort of commission on interstate commerce because I can spend money better than the government? No, I can spend money in my sphere of family differently than businesses spend their money in their sphere, differently than nonprofits spend their money in their sphere, and differently than the government spends money in its sphere. That's the whole point. The reason we have a system built around the 4 spheres is because in each one of those spheres, those people know how to do that best. If you try to run a nonprofit the way you run a business, it doesn't work. If you're trying to extract profits out of an effort in a nonprofit organization, it doesn't work. You run nonprofits differently than for-profit companies. And you run families differently than governments. That's the whole point. But this mantra, we can spend money better than our government. Well, on stuff for my family, but I don't know how to spend money for somebody else and for the collective good. It's just not. Like if I had to figure out how to fund the state park system, yeah, I'd be at a bit of a loss, right? Because that's not what I spend my time worrying about. 6 facts that drive me crazy. We should build our house. We should build our state budgets like you would your household budget.
Wrong.
Spend what you got. We just spend too much. That's our problem.
Nope.
Tax. That's a punishment. We don't want to punish people. Raising taxes will stop jobs. Number 5. They're going to leave the state. The rich people are going to leave us all to ourselves. What are we going to do without the rich people? That was a little snarky. And then the final one, we can spend money ourselves better than the government ever can. 6 facts that drive me crazy. And thank you. I feel much better now. Doug Pagitt Radio on AM 9.
Worse.
Do I?
Yeah.
I'm all red in the face. I'm all blotchy.
Right,
yeah, I get all blotchy in my neck. I get all fired up about this stuff. But it does drive me just out of my little mind. All right, we're going to be, and that's not even the Cripes. Come on, you got to be kidding me.
No.
That's still coming on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, and DougPagittRadio.com, where you can get the podcast and videos.